More coaching news for this Minnesota Vikings team. The Minnesota Vikings have hired Gary Kubiak, former NFL head coach of the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans. He's been a coach for a while now in the NFL, and I completely forgot that he took some time off due to health reasons. And it's good to see that he's back, fully healthy, ready to go. This is Realistic Randy of the Mediokr Best Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. The Vikings have hired Gary Kubiak as an advisor to the offensive side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't like this move. I absolutely love this move. And if you're a Vikings fan, this is nothing but great news. And offense is Gary Kubiak's specialty. And this is not to dismiss anything that Kevin Stefanski can do. I am highly optimistic to what Kevin Stefanski can do now that he's going to have a whole offseason to prep as the full-time straight-up offensive coordinator for this team. This isn't undermining Kevin Stefanski at all. This is all about bringing a collective group of offensive minds together to get the maximum output for the on-field product for this offense on the Vikings. I want to see less 3-and-outs, more first downs, less settling for field goals, more touchdowns, more points on the board. This offense needs a spark like no other, and I think Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski together can absolutely do that. And Mike Zimmer has shown you through his 5 seasons as head coach of this Minnesota Vikings team that if you're going to have success, you're going to need more of a duo head coaching set versus Mike Zimmer as the sole leader of the coaching staff for this Viking squad. And whenever I criticize Mike Zimmer, people bring up, oh, but look at the defense. The defense has always been great. Yeah, you're right. The defense has been great since Mike Zimmer has been here since 2014. I'm looking at these stats right now, and according to Pro Football Reference, the defense under Mike Zimmer, so the 5 years that he's been here since 2014. In 2014, they had the 11th ranked defense in the NFL. 2015, 5th. 2016, 6th. 2017, 1st. And this past season, 9th ranked defense in the NFL. The defense has always been great, but when you look at the overall team production, if you're a head coach, because that's what he is, right? That's the title that he has. When you look at the overall team production, 2014, you went 7-9. No sweat off my back. Matt Castle was your quarterback before moving on to your then rookie quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. That's your first year as head coach? Okay, fine. No big deal. 2015, hey, you went from 7-9 to 11-5. What was the difference there? You ran the coattails of Adrian Peterson. He led the league in rushing that year. Norv Turner didn't really put together an offensive scheme for Teddy Bridgewater, but he put together a pretty strong running game for that team. 2016, you went from 11-5, hey, to 8-8. The difference was you had a crappy offensive line, and Norv Turner and Pat Shurmur clearly couldn't work together. They're never going to fully reveal what really happened. I know Norv Turner, he went out to the public and said, hey, it just didn't work out. I decided to leave. But I'm wondering if Mike Zimmer went to Norv Turner and was like, hey, listen. I'm going to give you, I respect you so much that I'm going to give you the decency to say that you're resigning to the public. Otherwise, we're going to have to fire you. So I don't know what really happened there, but clearly Norv Turner and Pat Shurmur couldn't work together. Then you went from 8-8. Pat Shurmur was the full-time offensive coordinator, had a whole offseason of prep. 8-8 to, hey, 13-3 NFC Championship game. Why? Because Pat Shurmur put together a great offensive scheme for Sam Bradford and then had to ad-lib for, at the time, then for the rest of the season, Case Keenum. And then last year you went 8-7-1. So you went, hey, 13-3 to 8-7-1. Crappy offensive line. Hey, you wanted to get out and get Mike Hughes. The defense was still great, even though Mike Hughes was out for most of the season. 8-7-1, crappy offensive line, and John DeFilippo proved to be a fraud of an offensive coordinator. So 7-9, 11-5. Wait, no, 7-9, 11-5, 8-8, 13-3, 8-7-1. So you want to see more of a gradual growth instead of these roller coaster type seasons. You want to see more incremental growth with this team instead of the ups and downs. Too much inconsistencies with this team. But when you have a good duo head coaching staff with Mike Zimmer, can this team succeed? Yeah, I think they can. So I'm excited to see what they can do together, Kevin Stefanski and Gary Kubiak. And this actually reminds me a little bit more. I compared Kevin Stefanski coming to the squad again or returning to the Vikings team on Saturday. My Saturday podcast, you can just search Realistic Randy on YouTube. But I compared that to Pat Shurmur coming back, having a whole offseason of prep. Bringing in Gary Kubiak also reminds me of Pat Shurmur as well, and here's why. If you guys remember, after 2015, Wyatt left, right? Blair Walsh. Okay, fine. 2016, January 2016, the Vikings hired Pat Shurmur, and they designated him at the time as tight ends coach. But if you paid attention, it was never about, oh, he's just going to get the most out of Kyle Rudolph. It was never about that. It was all about him working with Norv Turner. And don't take my word for it. Listen to what, or not listen. Here's what Mike Shurmur had to say. Quote, Shurmur has had experience. He's been with a lot of different offenses, been a head coach, been an offensive coordinator. He's coached the tight ends before. He's had some experience with the Philadelphia offense, the West Coast offense. I think it's just good to get more guys in that have input. Okay, so it was all about them working together to get the most out of the offense. Now, it didn't work out. Now, this can go one of two ways. We saw in 2016, it just didn't work out. Maybe you can blame it on too many heads in the kitchen. But if you put your ego and your pride to the side, this can really bode well for this Vikings team. So Kevin Stefanski and Gary Kubiak, I think they can do wonders for Kirk Cousins and this offense. Now, as far as Gary Kubiak and his resume, Gary Kubiak as head coach, the first couple of years with Houston Texans, it was pretty much, it was kind of mediocre to average. Well, mediocre is pretty much average, but kind of, subpar to mediocre to average. 6-10, a bunch of 8-8 seasons, then 9-7. And then in 2011, the Houston Texans under Gary Kubiak's leadership, they went 10-6. The following year, 2012, they went 12-4 before getting fired in 2013 after going 2-11. Then in 2015, Gary Kubiak took over for the Denver Broncos, took over John Fox's job as head coach for the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver Broncos, they built something up with John Fox over the last few years before that. Then Gary Kubiak comes in 2015. They go 12-4, the Denver Broncos do, and they win the Super Bowl. Not only do they win the Super Bowl, but what was really interesting during that year, 2015, they had to go 7 games. They had to go 7 games in that 2015 season with Brock Osweiler as the starting quarterback. 7 games. In that span, Brock Osweiler went 5-2, threw for 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, about a 62% completion percentage. So not bad, but not great either, but it was just enough to get by, to where then Peyton Manning, he came back. He was never the same guy. He wasn't the Peyton Manning that we all grew to love. But hey, that Denver Broncos team, they were a defensive-based team, sure, but to be able to get a lot out of Brock Osweiler, to get the most out of him, to still go 5-2 out of a 7-game stretch with your starting quarterback out, that says a lot. And what happened after they won the Super Bowl? Brock Osweiler, he thought he was hot stuff. So I'm going to the Houston Texans. They gave him a big contract. And what happened? He was a hot-ass mess ever since. What does that remind you of? Case Keenum under the direction of Pat Shurmur in that 2017 season. Oh, he was great. He was amazing. Then goes to Denver, and it doesn't really work out, okay? So that's the similarities that I see there. And I think with the quarterback that you have in Kirk Cousins, and we'll talk about this in just a second as far as him being voted the most overrated quarterback. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. Being the most overrated quarterback according to his peers. When you have a system around him, and if you get an offensive line, for God's sakes, Rick Spielman, can you do it? And the weapons that you have on offense, and if you put together a good scheme, Kirk Cousins and this offense can thrive. We've seen it before. Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater with Norv Turner, it wasn't a great system for him, but when you put together a semi-good to decent to great offensive system for at least an average quarterback with decent talent, that quarterback can thrive. Any quarterback with decent level talent can come into this Viking squad and thrive with the right system around him. And that gets me to the point of Kirk Cousins being voted as most overrated quarterback according to his peers. And to that, I say, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not going to really argue against it. I do think Kirk Cousins is overrated, and I think the problem is they see the contract that he signed for, and it's part of his position. It's supply and demand. You're going to have to pay a little bit more than the talent warrants. But he got paid, top 5 quarterback in the league last year? He's not a top 5 quarterback. And I said this from the jump. You should never build a team around Kirk Cousins. So for those who think, oh, he must be top 5 or this and that, that's a you problem. He shouldn't be overrated at all. He should be properly rated as far as he's not a top 5 quarterback. He's more of the 10 to 12, probably more so 12 to 15 range as an NFL starting quarterback. What's interesting, what I found really hilarious is that the quarterback that they voted most underrated is the most overrated quarterback that I've ever seen. That's Cam Newton. Cam Newton has been inaccurate his entire career. His running style is really great, and his ability to ad lib is really good. But as far as developing a scheme and and we need you to sit back in the pocket and throw your receivers open. He's never going to be that guy. But this dude gets so much praise left and right. This dude gets way more praise than Kirk Cousins could ever dream of. The only praise that Kirk Cousins got was when he was like, do you like that? You like that? That's the only time. But Cam Newton, oh my God, Cam Newton is so great. Are you serious right now? But anyway, I'm not going to argue that Kirk Cousins is overrated. He certainly is overrated, but that's no sweat off my back. He's going to have to prove all those critics wrong because he gets up on that podium and say, we're going to do it. And he tells you all the right things. He makes you believe. He's really good at talking, just like Mike Zimmer is. But it never really works out. He's a little bit of a space cadet at times, but the talent is there. He can throw for 4,000 yards, but in game-tight situations, you need him to show up. And with this system, hopefully Stefanski and Kubiak, they can put something together for Kirk Cousins. And now for the final Vikings topic. I didn't even realize this until like this was floating around on social media. Facebook and Twitter talking about, oh, the Minneapolis Miracle was a year ago yesterday. So the Minneapolis Miracle happened a year ago on Monday. And I've got so many mixed emotions on that Minneapolis Miracle play because when Stefon Diggs came down with the ball, when he came down with the ball, and he started running to the end zone, I blacked out. I'm telling you right now, I blacked out because that never happens for us. That never happens for us. Normally, we're on the receiving end of that Minneapolis Miracle play because so many times this team has just choked the game away and just broke our hearts if you're a fan. I was never there in 98 as far as the Gary Anderson missed kick, but I was there for 2000, the NFC Championship game. 41 donut. I was there for that. I was there for when they could have made the playoffs. I don't know if this was 2004 or 2005. They could have made the playoffs, but they lost to the Arizona Cardinals in week 17 off of a damn Hail Mary with time expiring. 2015, you're in the playoffs. Wide left. Blair Walsh just pissed the game away. I've seen all these choke jobs. The NFC Championship game, 2016, right? You start off, 5-0 or 6-0, whatever that was, and you fall to 8-8 for the year, and you miss the playoffs. So much hype. This team has just broken my heart so many damn times. And it was like finally that Minneapolis Miracle play, it was like validation. It was like, yes, it was like, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. You go through the tough times to get to this point right here. Worth it. I was so proud of that team. And honestly, that's going to be a moment that sticks with me for the rest of my life. I was so happy. I blacked out. I damn near ripped my shirt off. I was like, this is what it's all about right here. And then the NFC Championship game happened. And, we all remember what happened. 38-7, okay, fine. But you know what's crazy? When I think about that's what ticks me off about the Minneapolis Miracle because it's like, you know what? My whole life, I've been an absolute dork. I did stand-up comedy before. I can do this podcast just fine. In business, I can do presentations. No, I'm not trying to sit here and prop myself up as like, oh, I'm this big bad guy. Like, I can talk to groups of people. I can talk in a group setting. But as far as like individual, like social settings, I'm like, I don't want to really talk to you. That's really how I've always been. So I compare this to like, you see the woman of your dreams, right? My whole life, and my wife, I'm married right now. She wouldn't care if I say this, but I can do this type of thing. These types of projects, this podcast. Oh, Treadwell, he needs to be cut. He's one of the worst receivers in the league. Or, hey, run the ball with Dalvin Cook. Or, hey, Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen. They're two of the best receivers in the NFL, and here are the stats and facts to back it up. But then I can go to a girl that I'm interested in and be like, hey, I'm Randy. Would you be interested in going out on a date with me? I just get super awkward. But then it's like, you so many times you get rejected after rejection after rejection after rejection, and then it's based off of you being stupid, you being a goofball, you going out there and just trying too hard. It's just, spilling your drink over her or you for that matter, or both of you for that matter, and just looking like a complete idiot, to where then all of a sudden you calm down, you work on yourself, you get your confidence up, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to talk to anybody that I'm interested in. I'll just be myself. They're interested, great. If not, no sweat off my back. I'm just being me. You finally go to a bar, you see the girl of your dreams right there. You go up to her, talk to her, and you're cool. It's nothing crazy. It's just like, oh, the vibe is nice. The energy is really nice right now. We're vibing. Everything's all good. You exchange numbers. You're like, oh, okay, she's interested in me. And getting a number is like whatever. You can get a number and then they won't text back. That happens all the time. But let's say you get the number and then she texts back. It's like, oh, she must be really interested in me. Okay. And then finally you're talking. You're not smothering her or being too pushy or anything like that. You're being cool. You're like, okay, the good conversations left and right. You're getting to know each other. And then finally you're like, hey, you want to go out on a date? You want to go out to the melting pot or something like that? She's like, yeah, sure. And you're like, oh, man, she wants to go out on a date. Finally, after all these years of just this monkey on my back, of being a goofball and being an idiot and making an embarrassment out of myself, having all these years haunt me up to this point right now, finally, I got myself together and got over that hump. I'm going to the melting pot, baby. You get yourself groomed up, get yourself a nice haircut. Bro, you don't even wash your clothes. You dry clean your clothes for this occasion. You get the perfect creases, the ironing. They hook you up nice. You tip the dry cleaners like, hey, thank you so much for the job that you've done. You're in a happy mood. You're giving money out to everybody. If someone asks you for money, yeah, here, take it back. You don't even have to give it back to me. I'm in a very generous mood because my life is all good. You get to the melting pot. You get to the host or the hostess. Excuse me, I got a reservation. Table for two for Realistic Randy. You get to the table. You're there on time. About 5 minutes go by. You're like, she's just being fashionably late. Who cares? Who gives a damn? 10 minutes go by. You're like, what's going on? You know, you give a text. She doesn't respond. You then give a call about 15 minutes later. Not only does she not answer, she hits the reject button to where you hear, your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice messaging system. And you're like, what? And then all of a sudden, about 25 to 30 minutes later, you suddenly realize that you're sitting there with a plate full of treats and a hot-ass pot of fondue chocolate all by yourself looking dumb, chilling. That to me, is what I think about the Minneapolis Miracle. This big, we finally got over it. Oh, thank you. We got rewarded. So many years of just heartache, and we got over this hump. I don't know we may not win the Super Bowl, but this is a great opportunity right here. This is a good stepping stone right here. And then what happened? You go out there and get your heart crushed. After you start to trust again, you're like, you know what? You feel confident. Okay, it's all good. Let's just see what happens. And you get your heart stomped again. That to me is the Minneapolis Miracle. So anyway, we do this twice a week, man. Mediokr Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. We do this twice a week. Tuesdays on 1500 ESPN Now, rebranded to SKOR North. On Saturday, you can catch the show on my YouTube channel. Just search Realistic Randy. Twitter at Realistic_Randy. Facebook at Realistic Randy. We'll see you on Saturday.